you doing? It's The Green Show with Jules Powis in for Pete Maxted. With me, it's Chiara Musi, and we are talking about rewilding today. All kinds of interesting stuff. So, you've probably heard of the term rewilding before, but what is it? So, well, rewilding is a kind of large-scale conservation. Some people call it putting the clock back. Others say it's sort of starting the evolutionary clock again in what they describe as a sterile countryside. I'd say it's probably all of those things and more. And maybe it's our moral duty to give something back to nature that was stolen many years ago. The idea is simply restoring wilderness areas to a time before humans killed off apex predators and all kinds of species. And all these species that are now missing, our rural ecosystems are, to some people, broken. And so we have things going on like killing thousands of deer with guns because there are no wolves. Maybe there's a more natural answer. And what if we discuss things that are often left out of debates on rewilding, things that are a key part of providing connectivity between rewilded areas, so we don't have species held in fragmented habitats with islands with limited genetic variation, so species are trapped inside them. That leads to poor genetic health and those species, and maybe their ultimate demise. So rewilding projects aren't simply plonking a pack of wolves into the countryside, although that might be quite fun to watch. It requires a well-researched ecological restoration and wilderness engineering with lots of monitoring, particularly to restore habitat connectivity. That's our discussion today. How are you doing? It's The Green Show with Jules in for Pete Maxted. With me today is Chiara Musi, and we're here to discuss rewilding. Now, Chiara, you've been looking at this.
Oh, yeah.
What have you discussed? What have you discovered so far?
Let me say that music was great, so I don't know if everyone else was
Isn't it
dancing
just?
like here. Everywhere, but hopefully so. But yeah. Yes, no, I've been looking at it. As you mentioned, this is a really great thing, this rewilding, and the process includes the restoration of forests, where we currently could have maybe farmland or moorland, and it means to some degree actually changing the characteristics of what is often seen as being the traditional landscape that we've been living in, which could be in actual fact odd for some people because as humans we have this strong sense of place. And although the landscape is not natural as such because it was created through the years by ourselves, we may actually associate that as who we are and the place where we live. So rewilding sometimes faces some aversion because of this, because it's felt as changing what we know.
Yeah.
There is actually some counter-argument to rewilding, which comes from the scientific community as well. For example, I've taken down the arguments that says that scientifically we are in the dark still about the consequences of rewilding, and we worry about the general lack of critical thinking that surrounds these often the expensive attempts at conservation which have to do with rewilding, because obviously it is expensive to introduce a species.
Yeah.
So the scientific argument goes that practitioners mustn't assume that scientists are able to predict all of the consequences of introducing novel species, because it's the dynamics are ever evolving and the ecosystems are. So it's not
Absolutely.
If you introduce a wolf, then everything happens. The cascade happens all the time in the same ways. So obviously we have to be careful. And they also say this is quite expensive. Maybe we shouldn't be investing in things in conservation for protection of biodiversity. Reducing major threats currently already present to the environment, such as deforestation, climate change, and invasive species. So obviously we can see why they're saying, obviously we are in a situation of limited resources. So if we dedicate resources to rewilding, what does it mean for other efforts that are currently happening? So obviously we can see both sides. But we have also seen, and Georges Monbiot kind of has spoken to this in quite a high level, so you can find him on The Guardian writing there. But it says, rewilding also supports against floods, because it's a natural way to kind of obstruct rain, slowing it down and making it less dangerous. So we have, the flood issue as well. So
yeah, I guess remove all the trees and then the water rains on the hills and just gushes straight down, and we see floods where the trees would have absorbed lots of that moisture, I guess,
exactly,
and held it
exactly.
in the soil.
The tree roots are quite important because they allow the grounds to actually absorb nature. So there is also that strong argument. And of course, if you prevent floods, or at least you minimize them, that's an economic gain as well, because the costs of areas, especially areas which are built that get flooded, is quite high. So obviously we have the argument.
Yeah, and we've got to be careful, I suppose, because we don't have a great history of reintroducing species or introducing species into countries. Think of rabbits into Australia, rats on small islands. Usually when we meddle, we cause problems. So I guess if we're going to reintroduce species that have not been around for some cases a few hundred years to some of them 1,000 years, we've got to be careful that the lower parts of the trophic scale are there to support them. Otherwise, there's kind of a welfare issue. If we reintroduce wolves to somewhere where there's no prey, we're just sort of we're going to starve them to death, aren't we, I suppose?
Exactly. Of course, they say that sometimes the species that are to be introduced, such as the lynx, are already, kind of proven to work in other areas, for example, in Europe, around Europe. So they wouldn't necessarily. Wolf is a bit more controversial than, for example, the lynx. So I think it's, it really depends on what you introduce. And
yeah, absolutely. It's not easy, although it's something that's it's really exciting.
Yeah,
I think it's
great.
It's isn't it just? It's a hopeful, lovely thing, and we like those.
It doesn't matter if you love him.
Lady Gaga. Source FM, it's The Green Show.
Just put your paws up, 'cause you were born this way, baby. Baby, I was born this way. I was born this way. I was born this way. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way.
Lady Gaga, Born This Way on Source FM. Hiya, how you doing? It's The Green Show. So today we are talking about rewilding. So, little piece on ocean rewilding now. I mentioned it last week. The so-called Blue Belt, protecting UK waters. A maritime equivalent of the Green Belt is to more than double in size, following the designation of 23 safeguarded areas covering 4,155 square miles of marine habitat. So these zones include protection for coral reefs and fragile sponges off the north coast of Devon and Cornwall. In all, when added to the 27 zones created in 2013, marine conservation zone status will now apply to an area covering some 7,000, almost 8,000 square miles, about the size of Wales. Now, the level of conservation required from site to site varies from habitats for each zone. And environmental critics, as Chiara mentioned, have suggested that the MCZ designations lack teeth because some don't impose outright bans on harmful activities that are supposed to prevent harmful things like fishing and even scallop dredging in some cases, possibly one of the most destructive fishing practices. But if we lay aside all the arguments for now, let's assume fishing bans are eventually enforced and maintained and monitored for all these sites. Let's assume that, shall we? It would mean that we have safe areas for juvenile fish, juveniles from all species, to turn into adults away from predators, and from these safe areas they venture out to recolonize other areas. Now, we know this happens from case studies from all over the world, and as nearby from the Isles of Scilly, that previously barren areas of overfished seabed can become something called zones of production. Leave them alone for long enough, and the population densities quickly rise, and species, they run out of space. So they begin to venture out and colonize new areas. So the boundaries of the reserve spill over and far and wide, and they help fishermen outside those marine conservation zones. And that's an effect proven all over the world. This is not conjecture. We know that happens. However, there are still many problems with small marine conservation zones, including habitat fragmentation, just like on land. But we have to start somewhere. Marine habitats have an advantage, and that juvenile stages of many species, including sessile species like oysters, The young are very mobile when they're very small, and they drift with currents, travelling great distances, meaning that they can improve the ecology around an MCZ for hundreds of miles. See, I'm optimistic. With decent management and oversight, these protected and rewilded zones of production can make a huge difference. Is this something that you've seen in anything that you've studied?
Yes. I mean, not that I've seen it personally. I mean, I didn't swim down and check them, but I heard and I read that actually they work pretty well. Obviously, as you mentioned, it really depends on the type of management, and often, like, they assign them, like they have done recently in the UK, but it's not quite clear what management structure is going to apply. So obviously, you have on one side fishermen who are quite worried about them being banned out of the zones, and scientists or conservationists being worried that not enough is going to be done. So it's obviously not as easy as one would think. The other thing that I remember is if you have wind farms out there, I mean, after the disruption, because it's quite disrupting when you actually put the wind farms down.
Yeah.
After that, because fishing boats don't really go close by, because it's not really for them to go. So there is a recreation of fauna actually around the areas, because it becomes quite quiet.
Around wind farms.
Yeah, around wind farms in the ocean. So it's quite interesting. Obviously, the birds, I'm not too happy about that. I mean, they don't usually go through wind farms; they actually go around it. But the fact that they have to go around it means that once they get to destination, they are more tired and the energy levels are low, so that may make it more difficult for them to eat or to reproduce. But if we're talking about the things under the water, they're actually quite happy after the disruptions of the construction and the disruption of deconstruction. They're quite happy to stay around wind farms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
And I guess we also have the overspill argument that we've seen fishermen have their catches rise, so they've been banned from marine conservation zones, but because of the spillover, they find their catches rise in the areas that they fish outside. It's optimistic, and we're actually getting somewhere with this, and I think it's something for a change for environmentalists to be positive about. I love it.
I got all this stuff waiting just for you. I just gotta know that your love is true.
Diplo and Sleepy Tom, be right there. You're on The Green Show.
Wanna be your girl, 'cause the mood is
More later. Hiya, how you doing? It's The Green Show on Source FM. You can contact me on jules@thesource@gmail.com. Chiara Muzzi in the studio, and we're talking about rewilding today. And Chiara, you've got something on a project called Trees for Life.
Yes, it's just to give an example of rewilding in practice, really. Trees for Life is an organisation, is a not-for-profit organisation. It's up in Scotland, based in Findon Bay, which is just outside, it's kind of in the Inverness area. So it's actually quite nice. If you ever happen to be in Scotland, go there. Actually, the area is worth going to. And as I said, it's a not-for-profit organisation, and they want to see the restoration of the Caledonian forest, with all that goes with it, like flora, fauna. So that's the aim. They do this by engaging volunteers. Well, partly it's because it's cheaper to engage volunteers than anyone else, I assume. But it's also because obviously through the use of volunteers, so you can go there for a period of months. As a volunteer, you actually are part of the process and you learn, and that awareness is raising. So you actually see what you're doing as if you want to become a conservationist, but just as anyone who actually would like to see this process and learn about it, you actually can do it. In 2012, they had planted about 1 million trees.
Wow.
So that's not a small area. They aim to do the same, so have a second million by 2018. So they sort of just had a restructure to actually be able to do that, and hopefully, with
that's quite ambitious, isn't it? Good Lord.
Is, but it's great. If they can do that, they've managed to reach the first target. So I wouldn't be surprised if they easily got to the other one. Obviously, they need the support of the volunteers, they need the support of funders and everything like that. But it is important because today few areas of the world are truly wild, and the UK especially, even Scotland is no exception. In fact, while in Europe, the 37% of Europe is covered, mainland Europe is covered by forests. In the UK, it's only 13%, so we're quite low. Yeah, so the long-term deforestation, overgrazing by too many deer and sheep has left much of the land depleted and barren. So wildlife obviously is not really happy to be there. So it's retreating, or it is missing because it can't really have the situation where it could survive. So the Caledonian forest in Scotland can be considered as Scotland's rainforest, and it is one of the UK's most endangered habitats. As we said, quite a lot of its rare species face extinction, so it's quite important to actually do something about that. So the idea is that if we restore natural processes that are present in the forest and protect the wilderness areas, then obviously the situation is going to improve. And obviously this includes reducing human interference in the ecosystems that are present, because these can actually make a positive difference. In practice, what they're doing is restoration of native forests and re-establishment of things like birds of prey, for example, like seagulls, ospreys, red kites. And then they're doing trial reintroductions of the European beavers. So they're kind of slowly trying to see, the effects that they have. You introduce a few, you see how it goes, and then you carry on if it's working. But in the future, they're looking...
Yeah, we're going to mention that a bit later on, aren't we? Yes, a bit more detail about what they're up to with that.
Yes. And, they're also looking, as we mentioned earlier, the Eurasian links, because it has been reintroduced to areas in Europe, such as the Alps and the Jura Mountains already. So it is a good candidate because it offers little threat to sheep, because it's not particularly interested in sheep, and none to humans, which is not necessarily something that the wolf maybe can guarantee. So they're looking at that. And
it's an important way in, isn't it? As a soft touch to you don't want to upset farmers. You don't want their lambs being taken by seagulls and things. It's it's a way they can become a sort
compromise, but also
yes.
So I think it's a good start, at least.
Definitely.
And then they want to put also specialist predators such as the roe deer species, which has multiplied in Britain in recent years and holds back the natural regeneration of trees. So they want to make sure that the natural predators of this kind of species actually come back. So they not only reduce the population, but actually they make sure that they move a lot. You disturb them, which means if they move a lot, then they're not gonna concentrate on certain areas and ruin certain areas too much, because they're gonna be forced to move around, move frequently.
Yeah, they want to avoid the predators, so they're a lot more mobile than perhaps they would be if they were sort of more relaxed and sort of munching out entire areas at a time. Exactly. So sort of taking out all the trees, I guess. Exactly.
And that would allow for trees to kind of regenerate, and so I think that's the idea: is recreate an ecosystem that's self-sustaining.
Yeah. So wasn't there a case study for Yellowstone where?
Yes, there was.
And didn't it involve just a bizarre result where a river changed its course due to this? Yeah,
it was sort of a cascading effect, starting from the reintroduction of the wolf.
Yeah.
And then from there, the wolf obviously would, I assume they had deer or something similar.
They did, yeah.
They would hunt deer, and then deer would move away, or would be reduced in number, would not eat from those trees that were by the water. Then beavers, I think, were more happy, things like that. So I can't remember, but the result, was rivers, healthier rivers.
Yeah, it was a complex, so the trees by the riverbank preventing erosion, and then the beavers were coming along, and they were sort of doing their thing. Yes, it's a complicated cascade, I guess, which sort of amplifies how we really need to know what we're doing before we try this stuff. But it's glorious to see it happening. The case study is working, and the research is there, and they're trying it, and it's so far it's going quite well where it's been tried. It's a really helpful situation.
Yeah, if anyone wants, you can find the Yellowstone case study online surely easily. But otherwise, just write to you, and you can send it out.
Absolutely. It's the Trokes on the Green Show, Modern Age. More rewilding coming up later. Hiya, how you doing? It's The Green Show on Source FM with Jules and Kiara in for Pete. So yes, now, pretty much carrying on from what you're talking about, Kiara, it's the Scotland case study. So today we have just a few areas of the UK that are truly wild. Very few, I might say. And even the Highlands of Scotland are no exception. Long-term deforestation, and that's properly long-term deforestation over thousands of years, and overgrazing by deer and sheep has left much of the land depleted and barren, and wildlife is in retreat or just missing entirely. The Caledonian forest, which you're talking about, it once covered most of Scotland and is now one of the UK's most endangered habitats, with less than 1% of the original woodland habitat remaining. Once upon a time it had beaver, wild deer, lynx, bear, wolves, all of them rolling the whole side, and many of them, well, most of them are gone, including obviously the forest, their habitat. People look at the barren hills of the Highlands, and you have the same thing in the Lake District, or it's my personal opinion, and they wax lyrical about the beauty, but I don't know. There's an argument for saying that there are a lot of barren hills, and it's a pretty sterile landscape, and there's no ecosystem density. It's a landscape fit for exploiting in Scotland, for example, with an overpopulation of deer, and it's for the profit of hunting parties mostly, it seems.
Yes.
But there are several rewilding projects live in Scotland at the moment, and some have been going on for quite some time. Red squirrels, for example, were introduced to Scotland, back to Scotland from England in the 1840s, which they now occupy, and they've gone from England. Maybe we'll swap them back soon. The red kite was reintroduced, which you mentioned. The white-tailed sea eagle, which you mentioned too. The European beaver, they've all been reintroduced more recently, and not without opposition, it has to be said. I just want to mention briefly the first rewilding project I ever heard of. I caught it on a TV programme some 10 years ago, and it's still going strong. It was started by a large landowner and philanthropist called Paul Luster. It's called the Allerdale Wildlife Reserve, and Luster's objective was a rewilding of his land. His idea was to rewild it right from the fungi in the soil all the way up to apex predators, which there's an ambition.
Yes.
Yes. So, but he understood that without apex predators, a healthy ecosystem just can't function properly. And the same applies to the very smallest plants that fill these ecological niches. So we need to ensure, when we're reintroducing these species, that the ecological conditions are perfect for the reintroduction of native species. If you, like we said, if you plop a load of wolves into a barren landscape, the chances are they're just going to starve to death, and then your welfare is on your hands. So it has to be done so carefully.
They're going to eat your sheep, basically.
Yes.
If
they don't get your sheep, they're going to die, and it's your fault.
Yes.
So this chap, Paul Luster, he began by replanting hundreds of thousands of native trees, and that was a good few years back now. So the estimates now he's getting close to 1 million, trying to restore a viable ecosystem of native trees. For a long time now, he's been keeping elk and wolves in pens, ready for eventual release. He's just waiting for the whistle. But the Eurasian lynx could be a prime candidate, which you mentioned too, for a low-impact first step of reintroduction to Scotland. It was, as we know from case studies in Europe, the case studies you mentioned, it would take small deer and rabbits, including other predators like foxes. But so far, it seems to have left sheep alone, which is just perfect, isn't it, for a first species?
Yeah, it's all about sheep.
Definitely, and this species also would keep the deer moving. Like we mentioned, the Yellowstone, so they'd avoid certain areas where they're vulnerable, leading to flora regeneration on those sites. More trees, shrubs. Well, in the case of Yellowstone, that encouraged bears, but maybe that's a few years off. They also predate on foxes, especially young foxes, so fewer of those mean more small mammals, which means more food for larger birds of prey. I think this is called, is it trophic succession? It's trophic cascade.
Yes.
Fix one, the rest will follow, which is a marvellous thing.
Yeah, it's a good image, isn't it? A cascade.
It is.
I don't know, it just feels right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and the chap who's doing this, he thinks that a reintroduction for the lynx could be an icon for rewilding, like we said.
I think it's being used for that anyway, so hopefully it's going to
in
actually
Europe
happen.
it is already.
Yeah, so
fantastic.
hopefully it's going to come here and happens, and then we'll see.
That would just be awesome. And it just, I don't know, I think a lot of rewilding's for us too. It's kind of rewilding ourselves a bit, isn't it? Just to have a...
Go through.
Yes, I mean, I remember we had wild boar released fairly recently, within the last sort of 5 years or so. They were captive boar, they were bred for meat, but obviously as animals do, they ran away. And just the idea of going walking and hiking in places where you're probably never going to meet them, they're very shy, but just to know that wild boar are scattering around and find their tracks, it's so much more interesting. And
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure people who walk their dogs will be very happy about that, but but yes, I think it's great.
Yeah, I did it. It to me, it just adds to the richness and the excitement. Well, a successful reintroduction already we've seen is that of the European beaver to Scotland. So far, many wetlands have vanished because the beavers were wiped out, and they're now returning, being monitored very carefully, and they're having an impact across the landscape, as you'd expect, because they're microhabitat engineers, and there's now room for amphibians and fish and all kinds of diverse tree growth because of their clearance and the moves that they're making.
And they're very useful for flood prevention as well, because obviously
Absolutely.
they make sure that there are obstacles in the rivers so they don't go as fast.
Yeah,
So-
the rapid runoff that we see that then cascades from the hills and runs through lower-lying villages, helps to
So
stop
they're
all that.
natural barriers. So
Yeah, as well as the trees, of course. Yes,
Yes.
which, like a sponge.
they work together, ecosystem. We're part of it if we think about it.
Yeah, yes. These ecosystems didn't evolve just arbitrarily. They were worked out. And yes, it'd be lovely to have them. So, the lessons learned from the species that have been reintroduced so far is the same lesson that NGOs have learned in the developing world, I suppose. Don't wade in with your ecological papers and your degrees and start meddling. It's been done before, as I'm sure you've seen from your development work overseas, and it doesn't often work. Always work with the local population, or disaster is quite likely to befall your project. In this case, if the farmers aren't consulted and say they weren't consulted before the sea eagles are reproduced, the sea eagles will begin taking lambs. That's what they do. They're sea eagles. They will take some. They hunt a lot of other species, but a few lambs will get taken. And if the farmers hadn't been consulted, they're going to do what they do to dogs that have been let loose on the land wearing their sheep. They're going to shoot them or poison them. They're going to get rid of them, as is their right. They're going to protect their income. And so you have to work with farmers and local people from the very beginning, so you can develop mitigation plans and get things in place.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a natural thing, a human thing, really. If things happen without you being part of decision making, you're going to resent it no matter what type of decision it is. It could be even positive for you, especially if it is negative. You're going to resent it because you weren't asked. If you're asked and you're part of the solution, then obviously you're much more happy to first contribute and then find a solution that is good for you, but also be a champion of the solution itself. So it's always good to engage all the stakeholders as much as possible in any conservation work, really, which sometimes is not done as much as it could, because sometimes conservationists, they have this thing, the thing that because they're protecting the environment, they have rights, etc. And it's not like this. I mean, human and the environment is not two separate things. They're actually together. So you have to work in the same way to kind of protect it. So you can't do one without the other. So
they're working landscapes. They're full of working people making a living off the land, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to involve them as much as possible.
Absolutely.
And Paul Luster, who I mentioned before, he said that in order to progress with his projects, he said, he needs to build a rock-solid track record of creating jobs alongside the reintroduction of new species. And in an interview I saw, he said he places socioeconomics right at the top of his ecological priorities. He said the countryside is a working landscape generating an income for people, and with the wolves must come jobs.
Exactly what we said. So you have to keep a balance between all of the ecosystem, which includes the human side of the ecosystem. So it's we are part of it. I think when people talk about us and nature, I think it's completely absurd. We are part of nature, so you have to work together.
Yeah, we totally are part of nature, and even us who aren't farmers there, I think rewilding the landscapes, it's very exciting. I do think it sort of means rewilding ourselves. Our landscape is a bit sort of sterile, and we're going to regain something that we lost a long time ago. It's a sense of wilderness and a sense of adventure that we don't really have here, and perhaps almost a sense of hope that the destructive march of progress that we've seen all our lives is possibly is not irreversible and can be changed.
Yes, I'm not. I don't know. I would advise to anyone to kind of go out next time you see a forest, go by a tree and give it a hug, sort of thing. But I'm not a tree hugger, but I think it's really just the contact with nature. You realize how important it is, and how important it is when you're actually out there, especially if you had a bad day. You go for a walk, and if you're lucky enough to live in Scotland or in Cornwall, not in London. If you go out and just walk by the sea, you actually realize how much it is good for your well-being. So it regenerates you, and so we have to somehow keep this, so protect it.
Yeah, for ourselves as much as anything else.
Yes.
Green Show.
Sunny sky sleeps in the morning. He doesn't know when to rise. He closes his weary eyes upon the day, ending with a friend named Sunny Skies.
Hey, how you doing? It's the Green Show, and we're talking about rewilding today. And now you've got our final story for today.
Yes. If we've done our job well today, which I'm sure we have, you'll all would want now to know how you can be a rewilder yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
The kind of easy steps to become one. And you will be able to find out that all you need is actually a garden. Well, for example, I don't have a garden, but it doesn't matter. But if you have a garden, you can actually do few little things that actually will help the wildlife around you. So basically, you need to think of your garden as a small nature reserve, and you're the warden. So that's right. You're the king of your garden. So that's the first thing. And then one of the things you could do is create a little pond, and this will provide a home for plants, insects, amphibians. And you can create as many habitats as possible. Obviously, don't try and create all of them. Maybe just select a few. Just don't overdo it, because otherwise you confuse everyone apart from yourself.
I'd like a zoo, please.
Yeah, exactly. So, with obviously some common sense, but a pond is kind of nice, especially if the pond has different depth. That's even better. And then you can plant native trees, for example, and shrubs, possibly of local provenance. So this will provide shelter and feed birds and mammals. But to find out what is native, perhaps pick around when you go around on your walks, see what's out there already. Check other gardens. So your neighbor's garden is maybe always greener, but you kind of copy it and make it your own. So see what can be local, etc. And then try to keep your garden as untidy as possible. If you can. So long grass.
I'm ahead of you there.
So you haven't touched in about 4 years, are you?
No.
Okay, perfect. So that's already a creation in itself. So it's like long grass, log piles. If you have fallen dead wood, they are all fantastic places for all manners of creatures. So leave some wild in the garden. Obviously, within reason. Rubbish and crisp papers don't count.
No.
So obviously, litter is not part of the wild. Avoid major changes in plans. So if you have something, don't decide every 6 months that you want something else and change it, because wildlife needs some time. They use this as a rescue place. So you don't want to confuse them. So they want to have somewhere safe to breed and shelter, to forage throughout the year. So don't, if you do changes, do them really slowly, so that wildlife around you, that you're using it, can.
You don't want to evict your bees from the bee hotel you've just built.
You don't. Exactly. You don't want to do that. So don't. It's like if someone moved you too fast. And then try and speak to your neighbor. And if you could connect your gardens to create a mini wildlife corridors, that would be perfect. And of course, tell your friends about this and make sure that they also create their own little garden.
Yeah.
There is great information on these on the RSPB website. So we're gonna try and post these on our Facebook page on the Source FM Facebook
Yeah,
page.
yeah. After
So
the
you
show,
can-
we're going to post the links to this on the Source FM Facebook page.
They go into much more deeper detail, and I wouldn't be able to take you as far as they do. So
Yeah.
check it out if you want, as I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
Do this.
And even little things like, hedgehog populations, as we know, declined incredibly. They've sort of fallen off a cliff. So little tiny things like maybe a small cat flap-sized hole in the bottom of your fence or back garden gate door to let hedgehogs in to poodle around, to make it a bit of a less sterile place.
Yes, for example. I think
Yeah,
it's all
tiny
adds
little
up, you know,
things.
and it'd be really nice actually for you to see this growing and kind of look out of your window and see this little nature reserve around you. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that. It's been a lovely show. You've got Sammy and Neil up next. This has been The Green Show. We'll be back next week. Thanks, my guest.
Thank you.